Well, we're still in this thing. We're going to the NFC Championship game. Are you not entertained if you're a Vikings fan? That was some fantastic stuff. What a great ending. It was an excruciating game to watch against the Saints, but what a way to right all the wrongs that we've suffered, at least for 1 week in the playoffs. This is Realistic Randy of the Mediokr Best Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We got to get ready for this NFC Championship game. So that was the biggest natural high I ever had. But now it's time to focus on the Eagles. So we'll recap this Saints game and preview the Eagles game, of course. But real quick, and we'll talk about the Minneapolis Miracle play. We'll talk about that real quick. But leading up to the game last week against the Saints, my best friend, I've known her for 5 or 6 years. We used to work together in San Diego, and now we're coincidentally both in Northern California now. I'm in the Bay Area, and she's up in Sacramento. She was like, hey, you should come up, hang out with our friends. We're going to watch the Vikings game. You should come up to Sacramento and hang out with us. So I said, yeah, okay. She was like, hey, you want to watch it at a bar or you want to watch it at a house? What do you want to do? And I said, I am not watching that game in a bar. Here's the thing. I'm not watching the Minnesota Vikings in a playoff game in a bar in public. Here's the thing. I exercise self-awareness with myself. No matter how much I rip this team and as much as I praise this team, no matter what happens, I love this team. So almost to a fault when I know I am way too emotional. I can't help it. I can be out of control. I can be intense when it comes to this Vikings team. And if it's any other team, like for instance, earlier in that day when the Jaguars played the Steelers, we went out for breakfast. We all went out for breakfast to a bar, hung out. I was watching it. As a casual fan, I could watch any team play. But when it comes to the Vikings in a playoff game, I have to be in the house. I have to be isolated from everyone else. Some friends, that's fine because they know me and they know what to expect from me when it comes to this team. But out in public, I'm way too intense. I knew that about myself. So I was like, all right, we're watching in the house. Went up there to Sacramento, got some ingredients to make some tequila mules, which is the only difference between a tequila mule and a Moscow mule is instead of vodka, you replace it with tequila. It's very good. And I decided to drink that. I had about 3 of them while watching the game, which probably wasn't a good idea looking back on it now. So we're in the house watching it, and everything's looking up Vikings. You started off 17-0 in the first half. As far as the first half is concerned, everything from both sides of the ball was textbook. It was everything that I was hoping that this Vikings team would do. On defense, you shut down the Saints. You held them scoreless. You forced 2 turnovers, 2 Drew Brees interceptions, and the Saints, they also missed the field goal. And another big thing as far as something that I wanted to see, and that was on defense. But as far as on offense is concerned, something that I wanted to see from the offensive side of the ball is moving the ball up efficiently, not turning the ball over, moving it up incrementally, and draining clock. Win the time of possession battle so that way you limit the opportunities that Drew Brees has. And they did that. They did exactly that. In the first half, the Minnesota Vikings won the time of possession battle 17-34 to 12-26. And you're up to 17-0 going into the second half. And yes, Kai Forbath, he missed a kick in the first half, but I wasn't really panicking off that. I know normally I do, but I wasn't panicking off that because everything else was looking up Vikings. And here's the thing. I wasn't cocky to start the second half whatsoever because we've seen this play out before. As a Vikings fan, you can never get too comfortable with the Vikings in a playoff game. Even if you're up 50-0, you're thinking in the back of your head, oh, something's going to happen. But anyway, I wasn't cocky, but I was feeling good because I was saying to myself, Mike Zimmer's the head coach. We went through that collapse 5-0 last year. He knows he's not going to let this team get too ahead of themselves and start feeling themselves. And yeah, we stopped Drew Brees in the first half. We can do it again. I wasn't expecting a mirror image of the first half going into the second half, but I was still expecting the Vikings to still come up on top pretty comfortably and making things very difficult for Drew Brees to move the ball up the field. And here's the thing. We got the ball to start the second half, and we didn't score, but we chewed up 7 minutes and 2 seconds off the clock. That was outstanding stuff. So keeping things up like you did in the first half. And then the Saints got the ball in the second half, as far as after we did in the second half. So they got their first possession of the second half. And from that point on, if we're being real right now, because I call myself Realistic Randy, I'm not waving pom-poms and wearing purple shades. If we're being 100% honest, I believe Mike Zimmer got outcoached in the second half by a mile. I've never seen this defense look so helpless. They looked completely helpless in that second half. Just they got picked apart. Drew Brees was a surgeon. And I know people say, well, it's Drew Brees. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Yeah, and that's fine. You're not going to necessarily stop the opposing offense every single time. You're just not. I get that. But what makes Mike Zimmer so great as a head coach and what separates him from the mass majority of others is his ability to make effective in-game adjustments during game. So you can score on them, but guess what? You're going to see something different if you're the opposing offense the next time that you get the ball. And I've never seen that Mike Zimmer-led defense for the Minnesota Vikings look utterly helpless. It looked like they could not do anything whatsoever to stop the New Orleans Saints. And people say, like I mentioned earlier, oh, Drew Brees, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. You can only do so much. Well, I'm sorry. What have we been saying about this defense all along? Their ability to make even the best quarterbacks super uncomfortable. The ability to shut down number one receivers. Xavier Rhodes got lit up in that game. He got lit up in that second half by Michael Thomas. His motions got the best of him, and he was pretty much out of it the rest of the game. The defense completely fell apart. They scored 24 points. You gave up 24 points in the second half. They scored 4 out of their 5 second half possessions with 3 touchdowns and a field goal. They looked completely helpless. And then not only that, after the Saints, when they got their first possession in the second half, they scored the touchdown. Case Keenum on the very first play, I believe, of the next possession, threw up a duck in the air that resulted in an interception. So my thing is that I said earlier throughout this year, I've been a very avid supporter of Case Keenum. I've been wrong about him. I get that. We've moved on past that. And I've supported him ever since that Redskins game where I was like, dude, I was ready to cuss that dude out where he threw back-to-back interceptions and damn near threw the game away. And I thought he learned his lesson throughout the rest of the season. He'll throw up a couple of ill-advised throws, but it's not to the extent where it's just like a duck, just a floating duck. He did that 3 times. One of them was for the miracle play, which he needed to do. So I'm not going to, eat his lunch for that. But the other 2, one was an interception, and the other was a conversion on, I believe, 3rd down to Adam Thielen, which set up for the Kai Forbath kick, which put us up, I believe, 23-21 with a minute and a half left or whatever it was before the Saints, they kicked their field goal. And when he threw up that duck to Adam Thielen, and again, it could have been, if it was a better defense, maybe they could have came down with the interception. But when Adam Thielen came down with that ball, I said to myself, you are so lucky, Case, that you have an all-pro receiver that can go out there and make that grab. And that set up the Kai Forbath kick. Case Keenum damn near threw that game away. I think he was starting to panic a little bit. He started to felt the pressure. And I was saying to myself all over again, this is not happening. You're really going to sit here and blow a 17-0 lead? And then not only that, after the Kai Forbath kick, which put us up 23-21, the Saints, they got the ball back on offense, and 4th and 10. This is oh my God, I was seething when I was watching this. You gave up the conversion on 4th and 10 from Drew Brees to Willie Snead, which set up the Will Lutz field goal to put them up 24-23 at that point. So my thing was, I thought Mike Zimmer got straight up out coached in that second half. The defense was absolutely helpless. Xavier Rhodes got lit up. And you mean to tell me, and I know I said this in this weekend sports video, I said, oh, we got 35 seconds left. I was wrong. We were left with 25 seconds left with the season at the hands of Case Keenum. I wanted to throw up. I was seething. And here's the thing. I had a little bit, maybe a little bit, just a tiny bit of, oh, okay, maybe we can get a field goal. And then they start off that final possession with a false start, and I damn near blew a head gasket. I damn near lost it. And you know what? Here's the thing. I started seething. I started getting just pissed off, ticked off, angry, whatever it is you want to call it. But as far as the emotional outburst that I would usually do while watching something like that happen, I didn't have it in me anymore. I'm telling you, 17 years of continuously going through this time after time after time in the playoffs. Now it wasn't a surprise to me, and I just sat there. I felt myself transforming. Anybody that ever watched Dragon Ball Z years ago, I don't watch anymore. I'm a grown-ass man. I don't watch anymore. Nothing against those that watch anime. I think anime is cool. I don't know if I could watch it anymore. It depends. I like the Comedy Central or the Adult Swim. I can watch those. That's pretty funny. But I used to watch Dragon Ball Z growing up, and whenever you see them turn into a Super Saiyan, whether it's Goku or Gohan, they turn into a Super Saiyan, they start transforming. When they got the false start on the final possession, the Minnesota Vikings, I felt myself transforming into Patrick Royce. I felt myself transforming into the most pessimistic fan for the rest of my life, because there's the optimistic fans where it's like, whoa, yeah, I believe till the day I die, Vikings, they're going to do it. Let's just cheer and support them. They'll turn things around. And then there's the other Vikings fan where it's like, oh, they're just going to let you down every time. I don't even know why you get your hopes up. It's par for the course, baby. You know, I was turning into that guy to where I would just ruin it for all the future generations of Vikings fans. I started to feel the transformation, and then the play happened. The play happened when Case Keenum threw the ball up in the air. And Stephon, because here's the thing, waiting to expect a touchdown with 25 seconds left, it wasn't going to happen. I was thinking to myself, get the field goal, and we all know what's going to happen. Kai Forbath, he's going to miss. The fact he threw it up there, Stephon Diggs came down with the ball into where I said, okay, you got the first down, go out of bounds, no big deal. And then he started to run. I said, oh, okay, he sees a couple more yards, then he's going to go out of bounds. And then he kept running, and he kept running. And then all of a sudden I said, what? There's no one there. There's not a white jersey there. Is this possible? Is this really happening? I lost, and then I officially blacked out. I damn near passed out when Stephon Diggs got the Minneapolis Miracle play. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I literally had to lean up against the wall because I was going to collapse and just pass out. My brain could not handle what was happening. It went from seething and angry to, you really did this again. You blew a 17-0 lead. How could you do this again? To, okay, we're going to go for a game-winning field goal. We're going to miss it too. Okay, he's going to run, get a couple of extra yards. It'll help Kai Forbath out too. Oh my God, this is really happening. He's going to score a touchdown. It's happening because here's the thing. The fact that play happened in that game was not surprising to me. The fact that it happened for us was surprising to me, because normally that play will happen against us in a playoff game. That play happens against us. And the fact that it happened for us, I couldn't believe it. I damn near passed out. I am so happy, so proud of that team to fight through. And I tell you what, I haven't played Madden in several years, maybe about 3 or 4 years. I tell you what, on the next edition of Madden, Stephon Diggs' football awareness, as far as his IQ and awareness, better be a 99. Because I'm telling you right now, if that was me coming down, my instinct was get out of bounds. Just go, go, go. But he had the awareness to keep himself in bounds, to pivot his feet and stay in bounds, and to run, and to see that there's no one there, and to keep running. That was absolutely spectacular. It was the greatest moment of my life as a Vikings fan. It was so beautiful to see. I looked up Vikings fans' reactions that night all on social media. It was so beautiful, so wonderful to see. I'm so happy for everybody that got to experience that. And now moving on, because now it's time to move on from that. We need to look forward to this NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll talk about that first, but real quick.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Matt of the hashtag NFZ, a.k.a. No Fly Zone, now officially part of the BGC Sports Network.
You can also find the show on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/spell it out, hashtag NFZ, and the Apple Podcast app.
Now, let's kick it back over to Realistic Randy and the Mediokr at Best Sports Podcast.
So a couple of things to point out. Kevin Seifert of ESPN has reported that Andrew Sendejo, he appears to be on track to play this Sunday against the Eagles. You remember he suffered that concussion in the Saints game after that collision he had with Michael Thomas. And I've been saying this about Andrew Sendejo. He's been a low-key defensive MVP for this Vikings team. I know you can name several of them, and he's not going to get the flash and the praise, because when you think of the Vikings defense, you think of Anthony Barr, Harrison Smith, Xavier Rhodes, Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin. You don't really think about Andrew Sendejo, but he's made several, and I'm talking about key defensive stops, especially in the passing game. I think back to that Redskins game at FedEx Field. He broke up 2 passes in the end zone, which would have resulted in a touchdown if not for him. He had a big-time pass breakup on Julio Jones against the Falcons earlier this season, and he had an interception, one of the 2 interceptions that Drew Brees threw. He had one of those interceptions against the Saints last week. He's a big-time player, and hopefully if he can come back, that is exactly what we need. I know, what's his name? Who's the safety that replaced? I believe his name is Harris. Is it Chris Harris? I couldn't remember. He's a pretty good player as well, but you need Andrew Sendejo there. And then not only that, Kevin Seifert also reported that Adam Thielen did not practice on Wednesday, but he also reported that there's no fear that he'll miss Sunday's game. He's got a lower back injury, it looks like. A lower back injury. So we'll have to see if he can play. Obviously, you need Adam Thielen to be available. So hopefully, assuming that everything works out, it looks like we'll have our roster. I know Shamar Stephen, he got hurt in that game last week against the Saints. I'm thinking maybe Tom Johnson will replace him, and hopefully he'll do a good job as well. So moving on to this Eagles game, as far as the two sides of the ball, defense. So my concern with this defense, I've got two concerns. Number one, the bigger picture is stop the running game. Last week against the Atlanta Falcons in the divisional round, the Philadelphia Eagles rushed for 96 yards total. 96 yards total. 3 yards per carry. That is exactly what you need to focus on. Now, you got to remember, the Eagles, they put up 15 points, okay? Even though everything that they went through, they got held to 96 yards rushing and everything like that, they only put up 15 points in that game. As long as you're effective on offense, the Minnesota Vikings, you should be fine. But here's the thing. Stop the running game. Stop Jay Ajayi. Stop LeGarrette Blount. And force Nick Foles to beat you in the passing game, okay? As far as the secondary is concerned, I'm not really concerned about them, especially if Andrew Sendejo can be there, because if Nick Foles, if he's going to get dicey and throw a duck up in the air, Andrew Sendejo will come down with it, maybe even Harrison Smith. Xavier Rhodes, I expect him to bounce back. I know he's got a lot of pride. He shows his emotions a lot. He showed it a lot last week against that Saints game. He got lit up against Michael Thomas. Let's just call it what it is. I expect him to be pissed off, to come back and want to redeem himself after that game. And Trey Waynes, I expect him to play as well as he's done all year. So like I said, stop the running game. And here's my number two concern on defense. Danielle Hunter he's had a good year. He hasn't had that wow year that I thought he would, or a great year that I thought he would, but he's had a pretty good year. Danielle Hunter is going to be lined up against Lane Johnson, okay? He's going to be lined up against Lane Johnson, first team All-Pro selection. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, so we'll just have to see about that. So that's the one concern the two concerns. Stop the run and Danielle Hunter on Lane Johnson. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. Like I said, force Nick Foles to beat you with his arm, you should be fine. Then not only that, on offense, my concerns on offense, I've really only got two of them, quite honestly. Number one is the offensive line. Just like the Minnesota Vikings, the Philadelphia Eagles, they've got a pretty good defense too. And the Eagles, their defense isn't as good as the Vikings, but it's really not that bad. It's actually a pretty damn good defense. And the Falcons' defense isn't as good as the Vikings, so I expect them to play a lot better than the Falcons' defense did. But the offensive line of Minnesota Vikings, I think they've got to be 100% ready for it. Last week, Case Keenum faced a lot of pressure, especially in the second half, up against the Saints. I expect a lot of blitz packages to be coming after Case Keenum. I expect a lot of pressure for Case Keenum to see. Now, here's the thing. As long as Case Keenum, and here's my second concern, Case Keenum, of course, as long as Case Keenum is taking care of the ball and not damn near throwing the game away, which he did. He almost did it last week. He had no choice but to throw that touchdown to make up for damn near throwing that game away. But here's the thing. As long as Case Keenum is taking care of the football, he's going to face a lot of pressure. And when he rolls out the pocket, and that's the difference between him and Sam Bradford. When Case Keenum, when he rolls out, like Sam Bradford ever rolls out the pocket, but when Case Keenum, when he rolls outside the pocket, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I remember a couple of weeks ago, last time I checked, he was one of the top 3 or 5 quarterbacks when rolling outside the pocket. So that I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned as long as the offensive line can hold up their end of the bargain. You may need to have Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon back there a couple of times, maybe some double running back formations at times, to have one roll out for a dump off pass like the check down while the other pass protects. You may need that from time to time, maybe an extra tight end. But that's the two concerns that I have. The offensive line and Case Keenum. Take care of the damn football, Case Keenum, and you'll be fine. I expect the Vikings to win. I think it's going to be a close game as well. You're not playing in ideal conditions. You're playing in an open stadium compared to U.S. Bank Stadium. It's going to be a lot colder, 51 degrees. I researched, it says a high of 51 degrees at Lincoln Financial Field. Hopefully they'll be ready for that. And then not only that, but the turf conditions are terrible. That last game against the Falcons, players were slipping and sliding left and right. Hopefully it's not the same, but it's not going to be as good a condition as the turf is at US Bank Stadium. So I expect the Vikings to win. It's going to be a tough game no matter how it is you slice. I know Nick Foles, he's not a great quarterback, but their defense can make up for that. Then not only that, the defense needs to be ready to take advantage of the opportunities that's presented to them. The Eagles, they put the ball on the ground twice yesterday. They put the ball on the ground against the Atlanta Falcons three times. They turned the ball over twice. They could have turned it over a third time, and that was on the play where Nick Foles, where he almost scored that touchdown, or I don't know, remember if he scored or if he got to the half-inch yard line, whatever it is. But the ball went on the ground, and he picked it up, and luckily he was able to save himself. So the defense needs to be ready to take advantage of that. I think this Vikings team will win this game. It's going to be a tight game, but they should win this damn game and go to the Super Bowl. We'll just have to see. So anyway, we do this once a week. Mediokr at Best Sports Podcast with Realistic Randy. Just one segment this week. Subscribe on YouTube or iTunes. We will see you next week.